Part 12. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 111. Kyoto. Yuja. Xiaoji stopped the carriage and helped Ling Chu out of the carriage. After looking around, Ling Chu pointed to a shady place and said to Xiaoji, "This is it." Xiaoji looked around and felt that although the royal street was prosperous enough, it was not suitable. But Ling Chu thought this place was good. The place she chose was next to a tea house, which was quiet and cool. Although it is at the end of the street, it is not very popular. Her body and soul have not yet been fully nourished. The yang energy of this place is most suitable for her. So I chose this place to set up a stall and tell fortunes. Xiaoji didn't understand this, and she felt relieved knowing that it was good for Ling Chu's health. Go back to the carriage and move down the tables, mats and other things that Ling Chu had set up for the stall. Xiaoji planned to wait aside, but Ling Chu did not agree, so she had no choice but to go back with the carriage, planning to pick her up at noon. Ling Chu sat on the horse and closed her eyes to rest her mind. She was physically weak. The popularity of the imperial street and the abundant yang energy made her soul, which was about to move, feel a lot better. After crossing over, the system rewarded her with some merits, and her soul was better than when she first crossed over. However, after she finished handling Hu Yuiniang's affairs, she prepared another health-preserving medicine and spent all her money. In order to continue to accumulate merit and earn money, Ling Chu went to U Street to set up a stall and tell fortunes. Just when Ling Chu was leaning against the wall and falling asleep, two men came to the Gua stall. "Hey, there is a Taoist nun here." Seeing the banner that Ling Chu put aside, Red Iron Mouth cuts Ling Bangxian straight away, the man suddenly became interested and pulled his companion to stop in front of the stall. "Is your fortune-telling accurate as a Taoist nun? How much money does it cost to tell a fortune?" The companion saw that the Taoist nun in front of him was about to fall asleep, so he tugged on the man's arm and said, "I don't know where the liar came from here to cheat. If you want to tell fortunes, you might as well go to Kongsugwan. The Taoist priest there can predict accurately." When Ling Chu saw the business coming, he couldn't help but sit up straight, but as soon as he opened his eyes, he heard these words. She didn't speak, she just raised her head and glanced at the two men in front of her casually. Ling Chu's fortune-telling also depends on fate. She doesn't care whether the man wants to ask her for fortune-telling. The man had a sudden idea and was about to give up after being persuaded by his companions. But suddenly he saw Ling Chu open his eyes and was swept away by her quiet eyes, and he suddenly changed his mind. Although this Taoist nun was drowsy just now, she didn't look like much. But when he opened his eyes, he felt like a fairy coming from the dust. Coupled with the Taoist robe, he couldn't help but want to believe her. The man did not leave, but sat down on the pony in front of Ling Chu. "How much money does it cost to tell a fortune?" Ling Chu glanced at him unexpectedly and said softly, 100 wen. She originally thought the two were leaving. Before the man could speak, his companion was the first to say, "Why don't you go and grab 100 coins? The Taoist priest of Kongsugwan only asked for 20 coins. The man also felt it was a bit expensive. 100 coins is indeed a bit expensive, can you give me a discount? Ling Chu shook his head and said, 100 coins, no price. I only calculate 3 hexagrams a day. If you think it's expensive, I won't force you. Seeing that she didn't give in a penny, her companion took the man and wanted to leave. But the man heard that Ling Chu could only calculate 3 hexagrams a day, and somehow he made up his mind. Okay, 100 coins is 100 coins. You can do the calculation for me. If the calculation is accurate, I will give you the money. But if the calculation is not accurate, I will send you, a swindling Taoist nun, to justice. Ling Chu sighed. Before coming out, I forgot to put some disguise on my face. Everyone who came to see her this time thought that she had a deceitful face. "Sure, I can calculate it for you. Don't worry, if the calculation is not accurate, we won't charge you any money," Ling Chu said. The companions originally thought Ling Chu looked like a liar, but now that they heard her say it, they felt even more like it. She must have been afraid that they would send her to the official office, so she said that she was not allowed to accept the money. Ling Chu ignored this person and asked the man sitting on the horse in a low voice, "What do you want to do?" As an heir, the man hesitated for a while, then said, "I want to know when a son will be born." Ling Chu nodded and said warmly, "Stretch out your hand." The man did as he was told. Ling Chu took out a small hammer from his sleeve pocket. Although the man and his companions were a little surprised when they saw the small hammer, they didn't take it seriously. Not to mention that this Taoist nun looks extremely weak, they are not afraid even if she is as big as a tiger. What use can such a small hammer do? They both have martial arts skills. Ling Chu took a small hammer, placed it lightly on the man's fingertips, and began to read his palm. Looking at the palms, back and fingers, he raised his head and glanced at the man's face. Taken back the small hammer, Ling Chu said concisely, "The cheekbones have peaks, and the master is alone and has no children." Seeing that the man's expression changed, Ling Chu hesitated for a while and then added, "Although you will have no children in this life, you will have 5 daughters. Although you will be a little toiled in the first half of your life, you will be able to enjoy 5 daughters in the second half of your life, a daughter's blessing." Hearing what Ling Chu said, the man frowned. It turned out that his wife had given birth to 3 daughters for him. This pregnancy was more than 7 months old. When those experienced women saw the shape of his wife's belly, they all said that the baby would definitely give birth to a son. Although he was happy to hear it, he was always uneasy in his heart. "I met this Taoist nun by chance today, and I couldn't help but want to make a fortune and find out whether he would have a son in this life. Who would have thought that he would have no children in this life?" The companion next to him heard Ling Chu's words and immediately sneered, "I would say that her calculations were not accurate. Although your family has 3 daughters, including the child in your wife's belly, the number is only 4. Ling Chu glanced at his companion casually and didn't say much. As soon as the man heard that he had no children, his face darkened. However, although he felt that Ling Chu's calculation was inaccurate, he still took out a small piece of silver worth 100 cash and placed it on the table in front of Ling Chu. The companion thought he was stupid. The Taoist nun said that the calculation was not allowed, and if he didn't accept the money, how could he pay it back? The companion just wanted to help him take back the broken piece of silver. Ling Chu took the first step and pushed it back with a small hammer. "There's no rush for this money. You can send it over tomorrow. Don't feel bad. If you think I'm accurate, send a red egg tomorrow so that I can have a touch of yours joyful." The man frowned. He originally thought it would be difficult for such a young Taoist nun to set up a stall to earn a living. Even though his calculations were inaccurate, he still gave the money. But now he was angry. The Taoist nun asked him to send the money and red eggs tomorrow. Doesn't this mean that his wife will give birth tomorrow? How is this possible? His wife is only more than 7 months pregnant. What is the difference between what the Taoist nun said and cursing his wife to give birth prematurely? The man took the piece of silver back with a look of displeasure. Ling Chu was not annoyed either. She was just reminding the man that his wife would give birth prematurely tomorrow. If he doesn't believe it, she can't beat him with a hammer until he believes it. As for the money, she was not worried that anyone would dare not give it to her. The companion originally thought Ling Chu looked like a liar, but when he met her, she really didn't accept money and thought it would be a not to take advantage of her. This chapter is updated for the rewards of 2 book friends 20226014,004 and Zhao Yilanzian. Thank you again for your strong support. Another, keep asking for votes. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 112. Chapter 112. Time is running out. So after the man got up, the companion sat down on the horse. You calculate it for me. If the calculation is accurate, the money will belong to you and the previous account will be wiped out. But if you are not accurate, I will send you to the official. This companion thought that if he said this, the Taoist girl would definitely count for him. Unexpectedly, Ling Chu said coldly, "It doesn't count." The man was stunned for a moment, and then said angrily, "Why don't you count it? Are you afraid that I won't give you the money?" He dug his hand into his sleeve pocket, took out a piece of broken silver, and slapped it on the table. The man is disdainful because he just wants his money. He can give it, but the money is not that easy to get. Unexpectedly, Ling Chu still refused. "It doesn't count." The man's face was full of astonishment, but then he said angrily, "What do you mean? Are you thinking that the money I gave you is too little? I advise you not to be too greedy. 100 cents per hexagram is a high price. Be greedy. It's not as good as a snake swallowing an elephant. Be careful of one day strengthening yourself to death." Ling Chu rolled his eyes and said disgustedly, "I don't make money from dying people. It's bad luck." The man didn't take these words seriously, he just thought she was annoyed with him for calling her a liar in the first place. The more the Taoist nun refuses to do it for him, the more he will have to do it. "Didn't you, Taoist nun, say that you will calculate 3 hexagrams today? You only calculated 1 hexagram just now, and there are 2 more hexagrams. Why can't you calculate it for me?" Ling Chu sighed. This was indeed what she said. She couldn't beat herself up. Forget it, you can't make trouble with anyone, but you can't make trouble with Yinzi. I can calculate it for you, but it's not this price. 52 hexagrams, if you agree, just leave. If you don't agree, please leave. He, this Taoist nun is so courageous that she dares to raise a price for him. Rather than being angry, the man sneered. Is it so easy to get his money? This Taoist nun said before that she would not charge money if the calculation was not allowed. It's not up to him to decide whether it's accurate or not. Okay, 50 taels is 50 taels. If you are not sure about the calculation, just wait to see the official. Ling Chu didn't take the man's threat seriously. Ling Chu asked quietly, "Tell me, what do you want? Marriage, money, heirs, or future? No, please calculate for me how long my life is." The movement here has already attracted a crowd of people to watch. After hearing what the man said, everyone shook their heads. This Taoist nun told me to tell fortunes, and I would only give money if her predictions were accurate. But how can this lifespan be so easy to calculate? Even if the measurement is accurate, when will this Taoist nun get the money? If this man lives a long life, do we have to wait until he turns 100 before giving him money? This Taoist nun does not look in good health. Maybe one day she will die without getting up, and the man will still be alive and well. Those who were watching could all see that this man clearly wanted to make things difficult for the Taoist nun. Just when everyone thought Ling Chu was going to refuse to count the man's lifespan, who would have thought that she would directly give him an order, "Your hall is black and dirty, you have black spots all over your mouth, and you are riddled with yin energy. This is a sign of drowning within 10 days, he will drown." Sighing, Ling Chu continued, "With your appearance, time is not short. Time is running out. Let's prepare for the funeral as soon as possible." As soon as Ling Chu said these words, everyone around her looked at her as if she were a fool. This Taoist nun really can't speak. Regardless of whether her calculation is accurate or not, just what she said is not pleasing. It would be weird if she could get money. Sure enough, after hearing what Ling Chu said, the man looked furious and said, "You Taoist nun is really a liar. You are just talking nonsense here. You didn't show me your palms or your face, so you just lied to me. Am I going to drown? I am not boasting. I have high water quality, and there are few people in Kyoto who can compare with me. I have been going up mountains and down rivers since I was a child. I can come and go in water just as freely as on land. How could I possibly die of drowning? Ling Chu believed that he was not lying. But no matter how good a water person is, if he is targeted by the god of death, he cannot escape. This man didn't know where he got the drowned ghosts, and they all stuck to his forehead. Ling Chu raised his hand and covered it between his eyebrows. This yin spirit looks like. He was not good looking at all. He had been soaked in the water for an unknown period of time, and his whole body was swollen. His long hair covered his head like a mess of water plants, and his face was dirty. It was really annoying to the eyes. Ling Chu put down his hand and closed his heavenly eye. He sighed and said to the man in front of him, "Don't worry, your yintang is so dark that it shines brightly. You can tell at a glance that your time is running out. Forget it, it's too late to say more. You go back when it's time to eat, when it's time to drink. If you have any unfinished business, do it quickly, otherwise it will be too late." The man thought that her calculations were not accurate, so he said that her time was running out, and she drowned. He was so angry that he slapped the table. "You Taoist nun, I saw that you are not in good health and you look like you will have a short life. I don't want to follow you any longer, you care. But it's really abominable that you come out to cheat at such a young age. Come on, follow me to see the official." Scamming, Ling Chu was unhappy. She also had a temper. It's okay to say that she was short-lived, she admitted, because it was true. To say that she is a swindler would be too much. She didn't want to do the math for this man, he had to do it himself. Now that the calculated results are not satisfactory, he accuses her of cheating. If she allowed this man to label him a liar, her master would be angry to death if he found out. Just when Ling Chu was about to beat him up with a small hammer, the man was grabbed by his companion. Forget it, this fortune-telling can't be taken as true, so why do you need to be as knowledgeable as this Taoist nun? One more thing is worse than one less thing. If you make things worse, if you implicate the Lord and get impeached, you don't know what will happen. How many disturbances are coming? This man originally thought it was disgusting that Ling Chu was cheating on the streets, so he planned to drag her to see an official. But after hearing what my companion said, I had to stop thinking about it. Lately, everyone in the court has been staring at their master, trying to find out his faults so that the emperor will dislike him. He couldn't cause trouble for the adults at this time. The man grabbed the silver and said to Ling Chu angrily, "Since this is your first time setting up a stall and fortune-telling, I will let you go today. Don't swindle again in the future, otherwise I will find out and I will not take it easy." Ling Chu didn't even bother to give him a glance. This man could still threaten her now, but within 3 days, he would come to her with money and beg her for help. Seeing that the two men left without paying any money, those who were watching the excitement gathered around, all wanting to ask Ling Chu for fortune-telling. It doesn't matter whether the calculation is accurate or not. Anyway, you don't need to give money, just treat it as nothing and have some fun. These people wanted to take advantage, but Ling Chu was ready to close the stall and go home. "I didn't make a penny on my trip today, so I might as well go back and rest early." Just as she stood up to pack her things, suddenly an unkempt woman rushed out of the crowd. Thanks to Len Nuan Zig, 20220614004 609325, maple burning, flower blooming ruo and amp, cherish each other, dominate 05, few bandits, powerful, soaring heroes. CB, unable to hold Sha and Wu Dongling live in a simple place. Haitang 838, National 114,514 Level Protected Waist, Pros. BA, Take Things Easy, White Clouds in the Sky. L, Fly, Tien Yulan, Heartbeat on the Left, 2023060162165 20230306195833531 2023-020-3710 A Dharma Ancient Smoke. Votes from book friends such as Stevensonda, Wu Nanma, and Asta. Thank you again for your support, full of motivation. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 113. Ling Chu was about to close the stall and go home, when a woman suddenly rushed out from the crowd. He rushed straight in front of Ling Chu. With a plop, he knelt down. He raised his head slightly and begged Ling Chu, "Xiangwu, please, can you help me find my son?" Those who originally wanted to take advantage of Ling Chu's fortune-telling were displeased when they saw someone taking a step ahead of them. When he saw the woman's face clearly, he couldn't help but frown. "Hey, who am I? Isn't this Mrs. Yang from Wuifangzai?" Someone looked at her carefully for a few times and nodded quickly. It is indeed her. Hearing that the woman in front of him was the wife of Wuifangzai, more people began to talk about it. "I have long heard that Mrs. Yang from Wuifangzai is crazy. I didn't believe it at first, but now, it turns out that the rumors are true. I heard that since her son was lost and burned to death on the Lantern Festival, Mrs. Yang couldn't bear the shock of her son's tragic death and ended up going crazy. Some people say that she has not accepted the fact that her son died tragically. They say that he was just lost and she is still looking for him every day." Ling Chu heard these discussions and glanced sideways at them. He turned back again, with a surprised look on his face. This woman is a madman? Why doesn't she look like her? Although this woman looked unkempt, she clearly saw a trace of clarity in her pleading eyes. Mrs. Yang may have noticed her doubts and said quickly, "Xiangwu, I am not crazy. My son is not dead, he is just missing. I can't find him. Please help me." Probably because she was afraid that Ling Chu would not be willing to help, Mrs. Yang rolled up her sleeves, took off the bracelet from her wrist, and handed it over with both hands. "I don't have any silver notes with me, so I use this bracelet as a divination gold. Please help me do the math, the whereabouts of my son." Mrs. Yang spoke clearly, and she didn't look like she was crazy. It's just that Ling Chu just wanted to say that she was going to close the stall and go home to tell fortunes and come back tomorrow. But the system rang at this time. Ding! Power stone detected. Energy stones help to repair the system. Ding! Requested task detected. Ask the host to complete the task and get the energy stone to help repair the system. Ling Chu frowned slightly after seeing these pieces of information. What is the energy stone? Could it be Mrs. Yang's jade bracelet? Ling Chu looked at it for a few times and found that the bracelet was of good quality and crystal clear. Especially the watery green makes people feel a lot cooler in this hot summer. It turns out that jade can help repair the system. I wonder if the things she put in the system in her previous life can be unblocked after the repair is completed. Seeing that Ling Chu had been staring at the bracelet without saying anything, Mrs. Yang thought she disliked the bracelet because it was not enough for fortune-telling, so she said uneasily, "Xiangwu, as long as you help me find my son, I will be rewarded with a lot of money." Ling Chu originally planned to close the stall and go home, but since the system had issued the task, she had no choice but to accept it. "No need, this bracelet is enough for the hexagram gold. Get up and I'll do the math for you." Seeing that Ling Chu actually agreed to tell the fortune of this crazy woman, those onlookers tried to dissuade her. "Xiangwu, Mrs. Yang's son has been burned to death in the fire a long time ago. How can the dead man's divination be calculated? Don't look at it. She seems to be quite normal now, but I heard that when she goes crazy, she will hit people. Taoist nun, you don't look very good. Be careful not to get beaten by this crazy woman. Some people were worried that Ling Chu was beaten to stop her, but others thought she was just coveting Mrs. Yang's bracelet. This Taoist nun didn't make any money from the 2 hexagrams she calculated earlier. I'm afraid she sees that Mrs. Yang is a crazy woman and wants to fool around a few words so that she can deceive someone else's bracelet. Ling Chu ignored the comments of others and asked Mrs. Yang to sit down on the maza, and then asked, "Give me your and your son's names, birthdays, and horoscopes." When Mrs. Yang saw that she promised to tell her fortune, a look of surprise appeared on her dirty face. Hand out his hand, he picked up the brush on the table, dipped it in ink, and wrote his name and birthday on the rice paper. The onlookers were all surprised. They didn't expect that Mrs. Yang was crazy and could still write. But some people disagree. Some crazy people don't go crazy all the time. Mrs. Yang used to be a well-educated and sensible lady. It's not surprising that she can write even if she is crazy. Mrs. Yang heard those people's comments, but she ignored them and just stared at Ling Chu closely. Ling Chu first took out 3 incense sticks and lit them, then took out the turtle shell and copper coins and began to calculate. "Xiangwu, how is it, my son is still alive?" Seeing Ling Chu staring at the hexagram, Mrs. Yang felt uneasy. She hoped to hear good news, but was afraid of being disappointed again. Facing Madame Yang's hopeful gaze, Ling Chu smiled and nodded. "Your son is still alive, not dead." "Not dead?" Hearing these 2 words, Mrs. Yang seemed to hear the sound of nature. The eyes burst out with astonishing light. "This is great news." But the tears are like broken beads, falling continuously. Mrs. Yang was so excited that she choked with tears at first, but then various emotions followed, filling her entire chest. "I endured it again and again, but I still couldn't hold it back. I couldn't care less about being rude anymore, so I covered my face with my hands and burst into tears in front of everyone." Over the past 6 months, she has been searching around like crazy day and night, being disappointed and beaten again and again, and suffering all kinds of suffering. Her mother-in-law's abuse, her husband's resentment, her concubines' gloating, and the ridicule of others almost made her collapse. She was in so much pain that she wanted to commit suicide. But when she thought that a child as young as hers was suffering somewhere, she couldn't even feel at ease even if she died. We can only continue to search day by day. Now she finally sees hope. Those who were watching the fun originally thought that Mrs. Yang was a crazy woman whose son had been dead for half a year and was still unwilling to accept this fact, which was too stubborn. But now seeing her crying so sadly, I couldn't help but sigh in my heart. Mrs. Yang cried for a while, then quickly wiped away her tears and asked in a hoarse voice, "Xiangwu, since my son is not dead, where is he now?" "East of the city." Some people couldn't see Ling Chu deceiving a crazy woman like this for a bracelet, so they couldn't help but sarcastically said, "I think you, a Taoist nun, are not afraid of thunder if you deceive a crazy person like this." Mrs. Yang was already deeply shocked after her son died. Now you, a Taoist nun, are saying that her son is not dead. When she finds out that she has been deceived, she may not be able to withstand the blow and will go completely crazy. These days, even Taoist nuns are showing off and cheating. It really makes people's hearts unpopular. Ling Chu originally didn't want to pay attention to the accusations, but she couldn't help but get angry after they repeatedly said that she was cheating. Who said I was deceiving Mrs. Yang? The divination clearly shows that Mrs. Yang's son is still alive. Ling Chu simply packed up his things, stood up, and said to Mrs. Yang, "Let's go, I will take you to find your son. Please vote. Please vote. Please vote. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times." Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 114. Chapter 114. This is impossible. Seeing that the Taoist nun looked serious and didn't look like she was joking, some people couldn't help but wonder, could it be that Mrs. Yang's son was really not dead? But more people thought that Ling Chu was just deliberately deceiving Mrs. Yang. How could Mrs. Yang's son still be alive? Now the child is buried in the Yang family's ancestral grave. Many people have seen this with their own eyes. If the child is still alive, it is impossible for the Yang family not to look for him and let him wander outside. Ling Chu ignored these people's comments. After packing her things, she planned to store the table in a nearby store. Unexpectedly, Xiaoji walked out from the side. "Girl, please give me your things and I'll put them on the carriage." It turned out that after Xiaoji sent Ling Chu to Yuja, she did not leave because she was worried, but kept waiting quietly nearby. After Ling Chu handed the things to Xiaoji, he took Mrs. Yang and left. She did not ride in a carriage, but walked. Seeing the Taoist nun taking Mrs. Yang to look for her son seriously, those who were watching the excitement looked at each other for a while and then followed her. Some people just want to have fun, but some people feel that Mrs. Yang is too pitiful and cannot bear to see her being deceived again. They were going to wait and see how the Taoist nun would explain herself. If she insisted on defrauding Mrs. Yang of the bracelet, they would definitely stop her. Although Ling Chu calculated that Mrs. Yang's son was not dead and was in Dongcheng, she only calculated the approximate direction and did not know the specific location. The Lantern Festival of Shangyuan Street is held every year on U Street. Ling Chu asked Mrs. Yang to take her to the place where her son disappeared. Ling Chu looked around a few times. Although there was a fire here at that time, there is no trace of it now. At the foot of the Emperor, it was in an important place like Imperial Street. A few days after the fire, the burned place had been restored to its original state. This is the place where Mrs. Yang's son disappeared. Based on the time of his accident, Ling Chu combined it with the birth date and made another hexagram using copper coins and turtle shells. In this calculation, the hexagrams are shown more clearly. Mrs. Yang saw Ling Chu doing fortune-telling and did not dare to disturb her. Putting away the coins and turtle shells, Ling Chu took Mrs. Yang directly through the streets and alleys and headed straight to Dongcheng. People on the Imperial Street saw a group of people walking behind a Taoist nun. They were curious and couldn't help but come forward to inquire. When they heard that the Taoist nun was taking Mrs. Yang to find her burned to death son, many people's first reaction was that the Taoist nun was a liar. When Ling Chu and a group of people stopped in front of a large house, these people couldn't help but be surprised. "Isn't this the Yang family? Don't you, a Taoist aunt, say that Mrs. Yang's son is not dead and is at home well?" "The son of the Yang family is not dead, but as far as I know, the one who is still alive is the son of the concubine." "You, a Taoist nun, are really too courageous. It's just a matter of deceiving Mrs. Yang. If you take it back to the Yang family, you are not afraid that the old Mrs. Yang will beat you to death with a stick." Mrs. Yang was also surprised when she saw Ling Chu taking her back to Yang's house. Just when she was about to say that her son was not at home, she saw Ling Chu took out another copper coin and made a fortune with a turtle shell, so she had to swallow her doubts. Ling Chu knew that Mrs. Yang was confused, but she didn't explain much. After reading the hexagram, a smile appeared on her face. "Let's go." Everyone thought that this Taoist nun was going to enter the Yang family, and they were all waiting to see how she would be beaten out. Unexpectedly, Ling Chu did not go to Yang's house, but crossed Yang's house and walked straight ahead. Some people sneered in their hearts. It seemed that the Taoist nun was not stupid and knew that the Yang family was not that easy to deceive. Seeing that Ling Chu did not enter Yang's house, but turned around and left, Mrs. Yang hurriedly followed. "Xiang, where are we going?" "Don't worry, it's almost there." Hearing that her son would be found soon, Mrs. Yang's eyes were surprisingly bright. following Ling Chu closely, for fear that he would be lost. But when Ling Chu took her past Yang's house, walked through 2 alleys, and stopped in front of a small house, Mrs. Yang's brows frowned tightly. "We're here," Ling Chu breathed out lightly. He was very tired from the journey. Seeing Ling Chu raising his hand to knock on the door, Mrs. Yang couldn't help but said, "Xiang, wait, is there something wrong? My son can't be here." Ling Chu glanced at Mrs. Yang in surprise. "Why do you say that? Do you know this family?" Mrs. Yang nodded. "I recognize it. This is my handkerchief's home. The person who lives in this house is Mrs. Yang's handkerchief?" Ling Chu really didn't expect this. Seeing her surprised look, Mrs. Yang quickly explained, "The person who lives in this house is named Lu Qianling, and she has been on good terms with me since she was a child. Others thought that my son was burned to death, but she believed that my son was not dead and even helped me search for him. Lu Qianling is very close to me. My son is missing and cannot be at her house." Speaking of this, Mrs. Yang was afraid of angering Ling Chu, so she said uneasily, "Xiang, could it be that there was a mistake?" Those who came to watch the excitement laughed after hearing Mrs. Yang's words. This Taoist nun originally came here to make random remarks about a place, but she didn't expect that the person living in this house happened to be an acquaintance of Mrs. Yang, and she was a good friend of the handkerchief. Let's see how this Taoist nun ends up. Ling Chu took a deep look at Mrs. Yang and pointed at the house in front of her. "According to the divination, your son is here." Seeing Mrs. Yang's hesitation, Ling Chu stepped forward without further explanation and raised his hand to knock on the door. Her hexagrams are infallible. Those spectators saw her knocking on the door and did not step forward to stop her. Instead, they gloated and watched the show. They were all waiting for Ling Chu to be slapped in the face by someone in this house. Hum, bang, bang. After knocking several times, a soft female voice came from the door, "Coming, coming." The wooden door creaked, and a delicate-looking woman opened the door. Seeing a young and beautiful Taoist nun standing at the door, the woman was stunned for a moment. Ling Chu glanced at her up and down and asked directly, "Are you Lu Qianling?" The woman nodded. "I wonder what's going on with this fairy girl." Ling Chu walked all the way and was so tired that he didn't want to talk much. He stepped aside to make way for Mrs. Yang to come forward and explain her purpose. Seeing the unkempt Mrs. Yang behind her, a flash of disgust flashed through Lu Qianling's eyes, but she quickly revealed a look of surprise. "Sister Lan, why are you here?" Mrs. Yang's maiden name is Lan. This Lu Qianling has been on good terms with Mrs. Yang since she was a child. After she got married, she still called her sister Lan. Lu Qianling thought Mrs. Yang was crazy and did not see her dislike. But Mrs. Yang's heart sank. Since childhood, because Lu Qianling's family was not as good as hers, she has always taken care of her like her own sister. Mrs. Yang originally thought that even if outsiders disliked her for being a crazy woman, her little sister Ling would not dislike her either. But it turned out that she was deceiving herself. Originally, the Taoist nun said that her son was at Lu Qianling's house, but she still didn't believe it. But now, she was not sure. 2020829230901363 201812111300060047 1209082031111929 202203171637239113 20230601621658 202303061958333531 Xianyu Sukong, take you for what you are. Heartbeat on the left, 2023010615323528 202301231228236228 1047456660 1312081712085004 Museo, Reaper 952, 201905210924183220. Jiangbao leftward arrow. Leftward arrow 1509241945090023. 1509241945090023, Yume in the flower room, grid shop, Fengqing Yu, Tianbi, pros. BA, Jin Yan, uncle, AMU Tuhuo, my big cat loves meat, nervous frog, white clouds in the sky L, clear sky after rain. Ed, the irritable Mr. Zhang is helpless, I will spend the rest of my life forgetting you, Sangro, the of decline is coming, stretch your waist. 609,325, Big Thunder Zen Heart, Tianxiu Feng, Xingyu, the first bookworm, Lean Pig, Heian Cake. Sanikak, Ziochat, the breeze blows through the bamboo, a dream and a surprise, be content with the situation. Thank you for your strong support, and grateful to have you on our journey. Thank you all from the bottom of my heart. End of this chapter. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 115. Seeing Mrs. Yang staring straight at her without speaking, Lu Jianling felt a trace of impatience in her heart. But with a gentle smile on his face, he reminded softly, Sister Lan, are you coming to my house for something? Seeing that Lu Jianling smiled kindly at her as before, Mrs. Yang couldn't help but wonder, could it be that she had seen it wrong just now? But after a moment of hesitation, it was his concern for his son that prevailed. Mrs. Yang did not mince words and asked directly, Jianling, is my son at your house? Lu Qianling's delicate brows furrowed, with a look of astonishment on her face. Sister Lan, are you confused again? Why is your son at my house? Sighing softly, Lu Jianling reached out and patted Mrs. Yang's arm. Sister Lan, did you go to CNGER again today? It must be another tiring day, right? Listen to me, go home quickly, wash up and have a good sleep. Maybe NGER will be back when you wake up tomorrow. Everyone watching the excitement knows that Lu Jianling knows that Mrs. Yang can't stand the excitement, and these words are just to comfort her. Mrs. Yang kept a close eye on Lu Jianling, and when she saw that her expression did not seem to be fake, she was still as usual. Worried that she was exhausted from searching for her son, she coaxed herself to go back and rest in a soft voice, and the suspicion in her heart was suddenly dispelled. How could she doubt this handkerchief whom she had cared for and cared about like she was her own sister? Ever since her son had an accident, everyone thought that she couldn't bear the blow and had gone crazy, and their attitude towards her plummeted. In the past 6 months, she has suffered all kinds of hardships in the world, but this handkerchief, whom she has always loved as her biological sister, has the same attitude towards her as before. She said that her son was not dead, but just missing. No one believed it. Only Lu Jianling accompanied her to search for him. Worried that her reckless search would damage her body, she would coax herself to go back and rest like she did just now. Others call her a lunatic, but Lu Jianling always stands up to defend her. Mrs. Yang felt that she must have lost her mind. How could such a kind person kidnap her son? Mrs. Yang felt guilty and disappointed at the same time. Her son is not here, which means that the Taoist nun's prediction was wrong. Look, I'm going to say that this Taoist nun is a bluffing liar. Let's see how she ends up now. Hearing those people's comments, Lu Qianling's eyebrows darkened, and she asked why An Yulan suddenly came to her house to look for her son. It turned out to be this Taoist nun. Lu Jianling frowned and looked at Ling Chu. Which Taoist nun are you from? If you don't stay in the temple to practice, how can you come out and cheat? Sister Lan is pitiful enough, why do you still have the heart to deceive her? For the sake of money, can you, a Taoist nun, even abandon your conscience? Please let Sister Lan go. I have 5 taels here. Just think of it as the money for the sesame oil I gave to your Taoist temple. Take it and leave quickly. Don't come out to lie to others again in the future. Mrs. Yang's handkerchief is really about love and justice. Everyone despises Mrs. Yang for being a crazy woman, but she is the only one who is still willing to defend her. No, although Mrs. Liu's life is not very good, her character is really not bad. You see, in order to prevent Mrs. Yang from being deceived, she gave away 5 taels of silver to the Taoist nun. I tell you, you shouldn't give money. If this Taoist nun dares to lie to others, you should beat her out and see if she dares to cheat again in the future. Lu Qianling felt happy. She only gave up a little money and was able to win so many compliments. The 5 taels spent were really worth it. It doesn't matter that An Yulan's family has been better off than hers since she was a child, and it doesn't matter that she married a husband with a higher status than hers. Now he's still being stepped on by her. Ling Chu watched Lu Qianling enjoying the praises from everyone with an expressionless face, and said coldly, "Your son is dead, do you think that the child you snatched by means can be called your mother? If you let another child take the name of your child's mother, your child will become a motherless soul in the underworld. Your cruelty is not comparable to that of ordinary people." Lu Qianling's heart tightened. What did this Taoist nun mean? Could it be that she knew something? It's impossible. Apart from herself, only Na Tian knows about this. Don't try to deceive this Taoist nun. Lu Qianling had just finished comforting herself, when she heard Ling Chu's next words. A flash of anger flashed in her heart. What are you talking nonsense about, Taoist nun? My son is alive and well, just inside the house. Even if you are dissatisfied with me for stopping you from deceiving Sister Lan, you can't open your mouth and curse my child to death. Lu Qianling was angry and aggrieved, and her eyes began to turn red. Seeing Mrs. Lu being bullied like this by a Taoist nun, some people couldn't stand it and spoke out and said she was unfair. You, a Taoist nun, are just a bluff, but you should keep your moral integrity. You can't bear to curse such a young child to death. Aren't you afraid of ruining your own practice? Ling Chu looked at Lu secretly. Your son is not dead? Is he in the house? Well, call him out and let everyone see if he is really your son. If he is really your son, I will kowtow to you and apologize. Being stared at by Ling Chu's dark eyes, Lu felt a sudden shock in her heart. My son has been weak since he was a child and dared not meet strangers so many people would frighten him. Forget it, I don't want to mess around with a Taoist nun like you, so you can leave quickly. Sister Lan, you should go back and rest quickly, relax, live a good life with your husband, and give Ngeer a younger brother. Seeing Mrs. Lu talking about it, Ling Chu refused to let her change the subject. I'm afraid that the crowd will scare your son. It's easy to handle. We won't go in. Mrs. Yang will not scare him if she goes in alone, right? Let her go in and see if the one in the room is your son or her son. Mrs. Yang originally did not think that her son would be in the Lu family. Seeing that the Taoist nun was so sure, she couldn't help but have doubts in her heart. Qianling, is your brother Ping sleeping in the house? I'll quietly go in and take a look at him and then come out. Don't worry, I won't scare him. Mrs. Yang thought that if she said this, Mrs. Lu would let her in even if she wanted to prove her innocence. However, Mrs. Lu did not let her in. Instead, she blocked the door and looked at her with a hurt face. Sister Lan, why don't you believe me and instead believe what a Taoist nun says? If my son died, how could the neighbors not know about it? If you don't believe it, you can ask everyone, have there been any funerals in my family? Mrs. Yang, this is your fault. Mrs. Lu has always defended you and was afraid that you would be deceived. She did not hesitate to spend her own money to help you get rid of that Taoist nun. His son is alive and well, but you still believe the Taoist nun's nonsense. You have really blinded Mrs. Liu's efforts in vain. Ling Chu almost laughed angrily when he saw Mrs. Lu blocking the door with a white lotus posture. Too lazy to say any more, he took a few steps to the door, stretched out his hand to push Mrs. Lu aside, lifted her feet and walked towards the yard. Continue to ask for votes. Every vote you cast is the motivation for me to code. You guys keep working hard and I'll work harder. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 116. Lu didn't expect that Ling Chu would take action directly. Unprepared, she pushed her back and staggered a few steps before she regained her balance. She originally wanted to fall to the ground to gain sympathy and let everyone see how the Taoist nun humiliated her. But seeing Ling Chu heading straight into the yard, she had no choice but to change her mind and hurriedly chased after him. Mrs. Yang looked at Mrs. Lu apologetically and saw that she was chasing the fairy. She was afraid that the two would conflict again, so she had to follow her hastily. This is unreasonable. How can you, a Taoist nun, break into other people's homes so recklessly? Where are your parents and family? Do they just let you wander around like this? Ling Chu ignored Liu's words and walked quickly to the side room, stretched out his hand and pushed open the two doors. However, Ling Chu was also stunned by the empty room. Tisk, miscalculated. Looking at the layout of the house, she thought the child was in this house. Mrs. Yang saw that there was no one in the room, and her face was full of disappointment. Ling Chu saw Mrs. Yang standing aside with a look of disappointment, so he had to remind her, look for another room. Mrs. Yang came back to her senses and subconsciously wanted to look in another room. Sister Lan. Mrs. Lu was secretly annoyed when she saw that she obeyed the Taoist nun's words. Mrs. Yang could hear the dissatisfaction in her voice and couldn't help but hesitate. This, fairy. Ling Chu frowned. Mrs. Yang really didn't know what to say. You haven't found your son yet, but I just asked you to go into the house and have a look. What's the problem? If your son is not here, doesn't it prove that Mr. Lu is innocent? If he hadn't seen that the system wanted to repair the bracelet, Ling Chu would have really wanted to let it go. Mrs. Yang was too soft-hearted. Her son was taken away by others, but she didn't even suspect White Lotus at all. Perhaps she was worried that the fairy would be annoyed and leave her alone. Mrs. Yang quickly apologized to Mrs. Lu. Qianling, I'll just take a look. Don't worry, I won't disturb Brother Ping. Sister Lan. Seeing that she actually wanted to go into the house to search, Ms. Lu looked annoyed and wanted to step forward to stop her. Ling Chu stepped in front of her. Why, are you feeling guilty and want to stop her? Who is feeling guilty? I am just. Lu was interrupted by Ling Chu before she could finish her sentence. Since you are not guilty, let Mrs. Yang go in and take a look, just to prove your innocence. Those who were watching the excitement also advised Ms. Lu, why worry, just let her go in and search. Mrs. Yang's son has died long ago. So what if we go in and search? Is it possible that a dead person can still be found? Yes, 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 let Mrs. Yang go in and search, it will prove your innocence. These people tried to dissuade them with good intentions, but Mrs. Lu did not appreciate it. She had a dark face and wanted to bypass Ling Chu to stop Mrs. Yang. However, how could Ling Chu make her wish come true? Soon, Mrs. Yang came back with a disappointed look on her face. Xiang, my brother-in is not in the Lu family. And Gear is not at Liu's house? Ling Chu frowned, unwilling to do this. She has confidence in her own hexagram skills. Mrs. Lu had been holding back her anger for a long time, so she pretended to be aggrieved at this meeting. Sister Lan, originally I was afraid that you would be irritated and didn't want to mention Ngeer's matter, but how could you believe what the Taoist nun said, thinking that Ngeer would hide it? What about at my house? We have known each other since childhood. Don't you still understand what kind of person I am? You would rather believe the words of an unknown Taoist nun than believe me. It really makes me sad. Liu's eyes were so aggrieved that she even took out a handkerchief and wiped her red eyes. The soft-hearted woman couldn't help but sigh, look at it more. This Mrs. Yang has been acting crazy all the time since her son's accident. Why do you need to be as knowledgeable as her? According to me, it's all this Taoist nun's fault. She can even fool stupid people. Mrs. Lu pressed the corner of her eyes with the handkerchief and sighed, I'm not really angry with Sister Yang. I know she is confused and will inevitably be deceived by those with ulterior motives. Before Lu finished speaking, Ling Chu suddenly took out a small hammer and swung it towards the woodshed beside him. Boom! There was a loud noise. The scene suddenly became silent. Ling Chu glanced coldly at the pale-faced Mrs. Lu. Snored. The left sentence has ulterior motives, and the right sentence accuses her in a pretentious manner. Could it be that he thinks she has no temper? Mrs. Yang couldn't find her son, so Ling Chu simply opened the system. It was originally a disgusting experience of Liu's White Lotus. This scan, when he saw the situation inside, the anger in Ling Chu's heart rose. Without thinking, he took out a small hammer and smashed the woodshed next to him. 2 door panels hit the ground, raising a cloud of smoke and dust. Shocked everyone. Until she saw Ling Chu walking towards the woodshed, Mrs. Lu hurriedly stepped forward to stop her with a pale face. What are you doing? You, a swashbuckling Taoist nun, came to my house and beat and smashed me. You bullied a weak woman like me. If I didn't, reporting to the official is really unacceptable. Report to the official? Ling Chu looked at Ms. Lu coldly. If you want to report to the official, please move quickly. If you are too late, I worry that all the officials in the Yamen will be off duty. Ms. Lu was speechless by Ling Chu's words. Why does she think this Taoist nun is a bit evil? Normal people are not afraid when they hear the official report. But instead of being afraid, the Taoist nun was worried that she would be slow to report to the official. The more Lu thought about it, the more uneasy he became. Could it be that this Taoist nun knows something and is therefore confident? Just when Lu Qianling was in a state of confusion, Ling Chu picked up the small hammer and walked to the woodshed. Liu's heart skipped a beat, and she subconsciously rushed towards Ling Chu. Hearing the sound of wind coming from behind, Ling Chu did not look back, but quickly dodged to the side. Liu's body suddenly flew into the air and hit the ground hard. The pain was so painful that tears rolled down all of a sudden. It was obvious that Ling Chu had already entered the woodshed. She ignored the pain and hurriedly got up and limped after him. Mrs. Yang looked at the two people and frowned in confusion. She just discovered that it was just a woodshed. Why is Qianling so nervous when the Taoist nun goes in? With suspicion in her heart, Mrs. Yang raised her foot and followed him. Those who were watching the excitement looked at each other, and out of curiosity, they also flocked to the woodshed. Seeing Ling Chu go straight to the pile of firewood in the corner, Ms. Lu felt uneasy in her heart. He picked up a fire stick and hit Ling Chu viciously. Ling Chu heard the wind and swung the stick he was preparing to use to pry open the pile of firewood in the corner back. Lu Shi screamed and was knocked to the ground again. Ling Chu didn't even look at her. He raised his foot and kicked away the firewood in the corner. A piece of wood was exposed on the floor of the woodshed. Ling Chu opened the wooden board to reveal a cellar entrance. Lu, who had just gotten up, turned around and wanted to run away when she saw this. However, he was knocked unconscious by Ling Chu's hammer. Mrs. Yang and the others who followed were frightened by her violent scene. After all, she had been taking care of her as a younger sister since she was a child. Mrs. Yang couldn't bear to see Mrs. Lu falling to the ground and just wanted to go forward and help her up. Ling Chu's cold voice came from behind, "Your son is in the cellar." Thanks to book friends 2019060501465027 Kamen Nianhua, 2023121012702243, 201905210924183220. Pros. BA, heartbeat on the left, empty, national 114,514 level protected waist, 609,325, blue melancholy 175, China fuse, happy with the situation, 202203171637239113, 20230601621658, 202303061958333531 and other book friends S vote. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 117. What? Her son is in the cellar? Mrs. Yang almost wondered if she was hearing hallucinations. But she didn't want to miss even a glimmer of hope. Turning around suddenly, Mrs. Yang asked Ling Chu for confirmation in a trembling voice, Xiangwu, what did you just say? Ling Chu could understand her mood and said word for word, you heard me right, your son is in the cellar. Following Ling Chu's fingers, Mrs. Yang stared blankly at the cellar entrance in the corner. Perhaps the news was too sudden, and she had been disappointed too many times in the past 6 months. Mrs. Yang stared straight at the cellar entrance, Ling Chu's words echoing over and over in her mind. It wasn't until there was a slight noise in the cellar that Mrs. Yang suddenly reacted and rushed toward the cellar entrance like crazy. Following the faint light coming from the cellar, Mrs. Yang walked in along the steps of the cellar. Ling Chu did not go down to the cellar, so even though Ms. Lu was fainted, she still had to keep an eye on her. In case she went down to the cellar and Ms. Lu woke up and ran away, she would still have to work hard to catch him. Those who came to watch the excitement saw Mrs. Yang going down to the cellar, and they all started talking about it. Mrs. Yang's son is in the cellar. Is this true or false? How is it possible? Mrs. Yang's son was burned to death long ago. The grass on the grave is probably several feet high. But that Taoist nun, why do I feel like she's not lying? While these people were discussing, they vaguely heard an excited shout from Mrs. Yang coming from the cellar. Before everyone could hear it clearly, there was a loud cry immediately after. The faces of those who were timid changed. What happened? Why are you crying so miserably? I think it sounded like an excited cry. I thought I heard Mrs. Yang calling an GER just now, someone said uncertainly. Ling Chu glanced at the system scan, frowned, and said to those watching, is there any aunt or uncle who is willing to go down to the cellar to help Mrs. Yang and bring the child up? Everyone was already curious about the situation in the cellar. After hearing Ling Chu's words, those who were bold wanted to go into the cellar and take a closer look. Ling Chu selected an uncle in his 30s and 2 aunts and asked them to go down to the cellar. He then turned to Xiaji and said, hurry up your carriage and ask for a doctor to come over. Xiaji nodded and walked out without worrying about Ling Chu's safety. As for Ms. Lu, her girl can be knocked down with a hammer, so there is nothing to worry about. Not long after the 3 people got down to the cellar, the uncle quickly turned around and came back. As soon as they saw the uncle sticking his head out from the cellar entrance, someone immediately stepped forward and asked, how is it? Is Mrs. Yang's son really in the cellar and not dead? The uncle looked unhappy, frowned, hesitated, and shook his head. Someone immediately sneered, I just said that Mrs. Yang's son has been dead for a long time. How could he be in the cellar? What exactly is going on? Why is Mrs. Yang crying so miserably? The uncle crawled out of the cellar, frowned and said, there is indeed a boy in the cellar. He is sallow and thin, and he is chained. But I am not sure whether the boy is Mrs. Yang's son. Even so, when the uncle saw Mrs. Yang holding the child and crying so sadly and excitedly, he felt inseparable. It's just that he hasn't met Mrs. Yang's son before, so he doesn't dare to confirm it. but what he said was enough to surprise everyone. There is a boy chained in the cellar of Liu's family. Many people find it unbelievable. After all, Mrs. Liu has always had a good impression in the eyes of her neighbors. The uncle came out of the cellar and walked towards Ling Chu after hesitating for a while. Xiangwu, the child in the cellar is chained up, so we can't bring him out. Go and search Ms. Liu to see if she has the key. Xiangwu, isn't this good? Although the uncle felt that locking a child in the cellar was indeed too much, but after all, there were differences between men and women, so he couldn't bring himself to search Liu's body. Ling Chu didn't make things difficult for him either. Another ant was found to search Liu's body. I searched several times but couldn't find the key on Liu's body. Ling Chu simply took a ladle of water from the kitchen and splashed Mrs. Liu awake. Seeing Mrs. Liu open her eyes, Ling Chu didn't waste any time and asked directly, "Where is the key to the iron chain?" Seeing the open door of the cellar, Mrs. Liu glared at Ling Chu bitterly. This Taoist nun dared to ruin her good deeds. I have thrown the key into the pit a long time ago. If you want it, just jump in and find it. Ling Chu gave her a cold look, thinking she couldn't rescue the child without the key. It's too tiring to talk, so it's better to take action directly. Ling Chu knocked Liu out unconscious with a knife. Then he returned to the kitchen, took out a rope, Ms. Liu without saying a word, and tied her roughly to a big tree in the yard. Although some people felt that this Taoist nun was a little too much towards a weak woman from the Liu family, seeing that she acted swiftly and without mercy, they did not dare to say anything. After Ling Chu tied it up, she asked the uncle to stay and watch in case Mrs. Liu woke up and tricked others into untying the rope and escaping. When Ling Chu got down to the cellar, he saw the skinny and frightened child, and felt that even viciousness was not enough to describe Mrs. Liu. Seeing Ling Chu, Mrs. Yang wiped away her tears and immediately knelt down to kowtow to her. Ling Chu stretched out his hand to help her. "Don't kneel down, it's important to rescue the child first." The child was found, and Mrs. Yang now regarded Ling Chu as her savior. After listening to her words, she hurriedly stood up. The child must have been quite frightened. His small body huddled in the corner, looking at the group of them in horror. The two ants originally wanted to step forward to help carry him out, but the child screamed in terror, and even Yang did not dare to let her get close. When Ling Chu saw this, he had to secretly use a requiem charm on him. Seeing that he had fallen asleep, he took out a small hammer and broke the chain that was holding him close to his ankle. Mrs. Yang couldn't wait to step forward and pick up the child. Ling Chu comforted her softly, "Don't worry, I used a requiem charm on him to avoid being irritated again by seeing a stranger. I have already asked the maid to ask the doctor, and I will wait for the doctor to give him. Please take his pulse and take him to a locksmith to open the chains on his feet." "Okay, I will listen to the fairy." Ling Chu nodded and led the Yang family out of the cellar. People in the yard immediately gathered around impatiently. "Oh my God, Mrs. Liu actually locked such a young child in the cellar." Even though they saw Yang holding the child, some people still couldn't believe it. Is this really Mrs. Yang's child? If this is true, then who is the child buried by the Yang family? Could it be that this is actually Liu's son? It's the end of the month. Please recommend, subscribe, monthly pass, collect. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 118. Chapter 118 Shameless. Liu happened to wake up at this time. Seeing the child in Mrs. Yang's arms, Ms. Liu's heart tightened at first, but the words of others gave her a hint. "Sister Lan, are you confused again? That's my brother Ping." Ling Chu sneered, "Is this your son? Do you think that others are fools and can be fooled by you? If it were your child, would you lock him in a cellar with chains and torture him?" Lu Shi glared at Ling Chu bitterly. It was this Taoist nun who ruined her good deeds. What kind of abuse? I just saw that he was too naughty, so I put him in the cellar, thinking of scaring him. Besides, it is my own business to teach my own son, it is not your turn. Outsiders come in. The child is so skinny that he is almost dying, and you still say it was not abuse. My child has been weak since he was a child. He has always looked like this, but I didn't starve him into this. Mrs. Yang was so angry that she trembled when she heard Mrs. Liu's sophistry. If she hadn't been holding the child in her arms, she would have wanted to rush over and strangle this ungrateful woman to death. When Ling Chu saw that Xiaoji had invited a doctor over, he signaled to Mrs. Yang to take the child to the doctor for diagnosis and treatment, and then settle the accounts with Lu later. The doctor invited by Xiaoji was Dr. Luo from Renchundang. When he saw that the child was starving and emaciated, and his feet were chained, he felt sympathy in his heart. After carefully feeling the pulse, we checked again and found that the child was mainly frightened for a long time, was unstable, and was malnourished. In addition, there were many bruises on his body, which looked like he had been pinched by someone. Dr. Luo couldn't help but shake his head. He was so vicious that he could do something to such a young child. Mrs. Yang was so distressed that she wiped tears when she saw the pinch marks on the child's body. After the doctor prescribed the medicine and gave instructions for nursing care, Mrs. Yang left the child in the care of Xiaoji and walked towards Mrs. Lu, who was tied under the big tree with a sullen face. Mrs. Lu just saw that everyone's attention was on the child, and she originally wanted to break free of the rope secretly, but unfortunately the more she struggled, the tighter the rope became. Mrs. Yang stood in front of her, staring at her, as if looking at a stranger she had never met before. "Why did you kidnap my Anger? He is only 3 years old, how could you do this to him?" Although Ms. Lu described herself as embarrassed at this time, she put on a pitiful expression. "Sister Lan, you must be confused. I didn't want to irritate you originally, but now that things have come to this, I can only speak frankly. Sister Lan, that child is not Yang Jinan, that is my child Li Changping. Your brother-in was lost during the Lantern Festival and was burned to death in the fire. Have you forgotten? Your mother-in-law and husband have already buried him in the ancestral grave of the Yang family. Your son is already dead." Liu's expression was calm, without any trace of panic. She knew that An Yulan couldn't stand stimulation since her child's accident. Whenever someone mentioned that her child was dead, she would go crazy. As soon as she started crying and shouting again in a frantic manner, these people would not doubt her words. However, she waited and waited, but Mrs. Yang just stared at her with an indifferent expression, and did not start to go crazy as she expected. Ms. Yang saw that she was starting to look panicked, so she twitched the corner of her mouth mockingly. "Do you think I'm really crazy and don't even recognize my son? There are 3 black spots side by side on my son's right foot. They are birthmarks from birth. The woman who delivered me can testify." Some people who couldn't help but be curious ran to Xiaoji, and sure enough they saw 3 black spots on the sole of the child's right foot. "Now that things have happened, I might as well tell you. Everyone thought that Nger was burned to death in the fire. I couldn't bear the blow and went crazy. But that was just a disguise. I am a powerless woman, searching for his son day and night, and had to pretend to be a crazy woman for safety. Lu Qianling, I have treated you well since I was a child. When you were a child, you sometimes didn't even have enough to eat because your family was poor. I took you to my house every 3 days to feed you and house you. I will give you all the clothes and jewelry that you like. Your parents are going to sell you to a wealthy family as a maid. I can't bear to see you suffer, so I gave your parents 100 taels to ask them not to sell you. When your parents are sick, all the money you need to pay for medical treatment is given to you by me. After your parents left, your brother and sister-in-law wanted to marry you to a widower in his 60s. You didn't want to, so it was my mother and I who came forward to reject the marriage for you. You can marry Lihumu because my mother introduced you to the marriage. After your husband died of a sudden illness, he brought his children to me. I gave my dowry yard to you and your mother and son to live in. You cried and complained to me that all your property had been taken away by your husband's clan members. I was worried that you and your children would starve, so you have 500 taels of silver. I ask myself that I have treated you with all my kindness and righteousness, but what about you? How did you treat me? You know clearly that Ngeer is my lifeblood. Why did you resort to any means to abduct him? It would be fine if you treated him well, but you are so cruel to a 3-year-old child. Lu Qianling, has your conscience been eaten by dogs? Listening to Mrs. Yang's questions, Mrs. Liu's expression was filled with resentment. And Yulan, please stop being so pretentious here. You have treated me like your own sister since I was a child. Do you think you love me? Bah! The clothes, jewelry, and silver you gave me were just pretentious charity in order to gain fame. Your family is so rich, and those things are not even a drop in the bucket. If you really love me as your sister, why don't you let me know you or your parents considered your parents? My parents are sick, what use are the 100 or 200 taels of silver you gave them? If you really care about me, why don't you invite famous doctors to treat them? Although my brother and sister-in-law are not good people, why did you and your mother ever treat me sincerely? Your parents are very selective about your marriage. Your husband Yang Kuokiang is not only a talented person, but he is also the chief registrar of Honglu Temple. As an official I have a body, and my home also has Wufangzai, a famous confectionery shop in Kyoto. You don't have to do anything. Once you marry, you will be the wife of an official, and you will enjoy endless glory and wealth. But as for me, your mother said that the people she picked for me were also carefully selected. But Lihumu is just a merchant in a small county town, with only a small grocery store. He has no parents or brothers at home, and he is a short-lived ghost. I was married for only 4 years when he died. I became a helpless widow, and everyone scolded me for being stubborn and for killing my parents and husband. If you are really good to me, why would you choose such a bad marriage for me and ruin me for life? I brought my children to seek refuge with you, but you just threw me such a shabby little yard, while you yourself lived a life of calling slaves and maids in the Yang family. Ifei, bah, you are treating me like a beggar. 202201172206211129, Zinc and Miss Lee, CM. EA, Blue Melancholy 175, National Level 114,514 Protected Waste, 20190521092418 Free Walking Taurus, 854-729, Silver Star, Pros. BA, Lua, 20230601621658, 202303061958333531, a white hat who likes to wear black clothes, love has passed away, Chen. Thank you all book friends for your strong support. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 119. Chapter 119 White-Eyed Wolf. Mrs. Yang was simply stunned by Liu's shameless words. Even Ling Chu was speechless. He had seen thick-skinned people before, but never such a thick-skinned person. It was not until this moment that Mrs. Yang heard Mrs. Liu's accusation that she realized that she was so dissatisfied with herself. Although my Yang family has few assets, my family's money is not brought by the strong wind. It is earned by my father and brother's hard work. I didn't expect that I raised a person like you with their hard-earned money, White-Eyed Wolf. Your parents are sick, and your brother and sister-in-law are holding on to all the family's money, and they are not even willing to give out half a copper. It was me who gave you more than 200 taels back and forth, asking you to seek medical advice for them. That's it? I even gave you money to take care of their affairs. Do you call this sending beggars away? Your brother and sister-in-law want to marry you to a 60-year-old widower for the price of a bride price. You cried and begged me, saying that the widower was too old, an alcoholic and a wife-beater, and you were unwilling to marry. I feel sorry for you and beg my mother to come forward and discuss with your brother and sister-in-law to refuse the marriage for you. But your brother and sister-in-law accepted the bride price and are unwilling to return it. It was my mother who used her own money to pay compensation to the widower, and then she helped you cancel the marriage. Your brother-in-law and sister-in-law saw that my mother and I were so devoted to you, and after tasting the sweetness of the bride price, they became interested in making money, and planned to give you to someone else as a concubine. It was because you begged my mother and said that you would rather hang yourself than marry someone else as a concubine that my mother chose Lihumu for you. Although Lihumu is not an official, he has no parents, brothers, or other relatives at home. But they are also an innocent family, with a good temper and a shop. You were satisfied with the marriage at the beginning and nodded in person. You said it's a good thing that Lihumu doesn't have any parents. When you get married, you don't have to wait on your parents-in-law and you can directly take charge of the family. Your brother and sister-in-law accepted Lihumu's betrothal gift, but they didn't even prepare a dowry for you. In the end, I begged my mother to prepare a betrothal gift for you and marry you off. We have done so much for you, but I didn't expect that in the end, we would end up feeding you such a white-eyed wolf. Mrs. Lu sneered, then Lihumu has a clean family background and a good temper. He is not a short-lived ghost. I was married to him for only 4 years, and he passed away, leaving us orphans and widowed mothers. Life is difficult. And his tribe will come to rob us of our property. Growing up, I have been no worse than you in appearance, but just because my family background is not as good as yours, I have been looked down upon by everyone around you. Others regard me as your maid. Why are my parents, brothers, and sisters-in-law not as good as you, and my family background is not as good as yours? No matter how well I do, no one else can see it. Even my family always compares me with you, saying that I am not as good as you in everything. If your mother really treats me, why doesn't she let me marry Yangkuakiung and marry you to that short-lived ghost Lihumu? Liu's face was full of resentment when she mentioned the past. However, everyone was once again shocked by her shamelessness. She has no blood relationship with Mrs. Yang. Mrs. Yang and her daughter have sacrificed so much for an outsider like her, which is really the most benevolent thing. She is not satisfied yet. And he was so shameless that he wanted Mrs. Yang's mother to exchange her own daughter's marriage for her. This is really a case of inadequacy in people's minds. To be honest, even ordinary parents may not be able to do this to their own daughters. Mrs. Yang now feels extremely regretful. She really shouldn't be soft-hearted to Lu Qianling again and again. No matter what difficulties she encountered, she would help her unconditionally as soon as she cried. So much so that it raised her ambition, making her forget her own identity and want to compare with her in everything. Ling Chu shook his head and said to Mrs. Lu, "You are just a white-eyed wolf. No matter how much Mrs. Yang and her daughter do for you, you will never be satisfied." As he spoke, he changed his tone and said, "I'm very curious, how did you abduct Mrs. Yang's child on the Lantern Festival? I heard that on the Lantern Festival, Mrs. Yang took her children out to enjoy the lanterns, and she was accompanied by many maids and women. Ordinarily, with so many people protecting you, it is impossible for you to break through the protection of the maid and mother-in-law and abduct the child. I guess you have some helpers, right?" Mrs. Lu looked disdainful. So what if the Taoist nun guessed it right? She would definitely not reveal the person behind it. She is having a hard time, and Mr. Yang can't even think about having a good life. She just wanted to make Ms. Yang live in uneasiness from now on, always worrying that her child would be abducted by others. Ling Chu looked at her expression and could probably guess what she was thinking. Raising his eyebrows, Ling Chu suddenly said, "The child who was burned to death in the fire on the Lantern Festival was actually your biological son, right? Let me guess, the person you wanted to burn to death was Ms. Yang's son. As a result, you accidentally burned your own son to death, right?" Ling Chu didn't know the truth of this matter, but seeing that she was unwilling to tell the person behind it, he thought of provoking her. Unexpectedly, she was just guessing, but she got it right. Lu Qinling's face twisted when she heard Ling Chu mention the child who was burned to death in the fire. Now that the matter has failed, her reputation has been ruined, and her life will not be easy in the future. She is not living a good life, so why can An Yulan live a happy life? This matter was planned by Na Tian. If it hadn't been for her, her brother Ping wouldn't have died tragically. Now that the incident has happened, she will naturally be dragged into the water, just like the two wives and concubines. If she can't live well, then no one can live well either. Lu Qianling looked at Ms. Yang proudly. "Do you know why I can abduct your child during the Lantern Festival? All this is the fault of your concubine, Aunt Tian. Anjur is the legitimate son, and Aunt Tian wants to get rid of him. From now on, everything in the Yang family will belong to her son." She bribed the maids and women around Angear, and took advantage of the crowd and confusion on the Lantern Festival to sneak away your Angear and give it to me. Aunt Tian originally wanted me to burn brother An to death. When you can't bear the blow and die together, your husband can support her as the main wife. It was because I saw that Angeer was still young that I couldn't bear to take action, so I saved his life. Locking Anjur in the cellar, I admit that it was not a good thing to do, but if I hadn't saved his life, he would have died long ago. You should thank me for my kindness in sparing your son's life. Ms. Lu wanted to blame Aunt Tian for everything, but as soon as she finished speaking, an angry scolding came from outside the crowd. "Lu, what nonsense are you talking about here? When did I ask you to kill Angeer? It is obvious that you are jealous that your wife is marrying better than you, and you are also resentful that your wife's mother has chosen a marriage for you that is not satisfactory. In order to take revenge on Madam, you want to attack Angeer now. It's the end of the month, please vote." End of this chapter. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 120. Chapter 120 Dog Bites Dog. Among the visitors, the man is Ms. Yang's husband, Yang Dengqiang, the chief registrar of Honglu Temple, and the woman is his concubine, Aunt Tian. The two of them were followed by a bunch of maids and women. It turned out that the news that Ms. Yang had found her biological son had spread. The people in the Yang family heard about it. Although they didn't believe it, the news spread so well that they had to rush over to see what happened. One thing. Aunt Tian didn't expect to hear that Ms. Lu was betraying her right after she arrived, so she naturally wanted to deny it. Aunt Tian was extremely angry with her. She was really a fool who failed to achieve anything but failed. Originally, she knew that Mr. Lu was jealous that Ms. Yang was living a better life than her, and felt that Ms. Yang's mother could not see her living a better life than her own daughter. That's why he deliberately chose the short-lived Li Humu as her husband. Aunt Tian found Ms. Lu, and the two planned to join forces to eliminate Ms. Yang, mother and son. After discussion, Aunt Tian bribed the maid and woman beside Angeer, and abducted him during the Lantern Festival. During the Lantern Festival, taking advantage of the crowds and confusion, and then handed him over to Lu to be burned to death. Unexpectedly, Angeer was very clever at a young age. Seeing that Ms. Lu was about to pour kerosene on himself, he immediately turned around and ran away. Lu was behind, holding fire oil in one hand and a fire seal in the other, chasing after him. When she was about to pour the fire oil on Angear, he dodged it. The kerosene did not splash on Brother An. Instead, it all splashed on Brother Ping, who suddenly jumped out. Lu was so frightened that she lost her grip on the fire stick and accidentally dropped it to the ground, instantly igniting the fire oil on the ground. The fire suddenly spread to Pingear and burned him alive. Although Ms. Lu wanted to save her child, the fire was so big and fierce that she could not save her child. Can only watch his biological son being burned to death. Since it is the Lantern Festival, the neighbors all go out to enjoy the lanterns. Liu's cries and Brother Ping's screams did not attract the attention of others. Aunt Tian's original plan was to wait until Ms. Lu burned Angear to death, and then send someone to create a fire at the Lantern Festival. Then he secretly placed his body at the scene of the fire while taking advantage of the chaos. Unexpectedly, Mr. Lu did not do his job well, and instead of burning Angear to death, he burned his own son to death. Ms. Lu hated Angear for running away, causing her own son to be burned to death. In a fit of rage, she locked him in the cellar, preparing to torture him and avenge her son. Aunt Tian did not expect that Mr. Lu was not doing things well, so she could only make the mistake and put Brother Ping's body at the fire scene of the Lantern Festival. When the Yang family found Pingear's body, they found that the body had been burned beyond recognition and was completely unrecognizable. And because Brother Ping and Brother An were almost the same in age and height, the Yang family never thought that the child who was burned to death was not their own child at all. The Yang family buried Brother Ping as their own child, but Ms. Yang was the only one who had a close bond between mother and son. Although the body was burned beyond recognition, she always felt that it was not her son. Not only did Aunt Tian deny that she had plotted to murder her legitimate son, she also blamed everything on the Lu family. Madam, don't believe Liu's lies. She has always been jealous that you are doing better than her in everything, so she wants to attack Angear. I have discovered her thoughts before and have advised her many times. She made a good promise in front of me and promised me that she would never attack Angear. But I didn't expect that she would secretly attack Angear behind my back. It's my fault too, for believing too much in Liu's lies. I thought she wouldn't take action, so I thought it would be better to do less than to do more, so I didn't tell Madam her thoughts. Ms. Lu didn't expect that Aunt Tian would blame everything on her alone, and she was so angry that she said, Aunt Tian, you are lying. Don't think about blaming everything on me alone. It was obviously you who bribed the nanny around Angear and the personal maid Kaiyu, and asked them to bring Angear to me during the Lantern Festival. He also gave me a bucket of kerosene and asked me to burn Angear to death. By the way, that kerosene was given to me by Hong Lian, Aunt Tian's personal maid. Aunt Tian glared at Ms. Lu viciously. Fortunately, she had secretly sent away Angear's nanny and 2 maids. Even if Madam knew about it, so what, she had no witnesses. However, Ms. Lu followed closely and said, Sister Lan, if you don't believe it, you can bring back Angear's nanny and 2 maids to confront her. I know that the 3 of them were secretly hidden by Aunt Tian in her own village. Go up, that Zhuangzi is in Wulia village on the outskirts of Beijing. Hearing the 2 men fighting each other, Ms. Yang's husband, Yang Kuoqiang, had a gloomy face. He really didn't expect that his concubine, Aunt Tian, was responsible for what happened to his legitimate son. Ms. Yang was even more annoyed by Ms. Lu and Ms. Tian. She had always been kind to others and took great care of Lu Jianling. Although Aunt Tian was a concubine, she never felt sorry for her. Unexpectedly, her kindness led to 2 white-eyed wolves who would murder her children behind her back. At this moment, Ms. Yang decided to withdraw her kindness and take back the suffering she and her children had suffered in the past 6 months. Aunt Tian will deal with it after she returns to Yang Mansion, starting from Liu's side. Lu Jianling, over the years, the money I have spent on you has ranged from 1,000 to 800. From today on, you will pay back every penny you owe me. There is also this small courtyard, which is also my dowry property, and I want to take it back. Hearing Mrs. Yang's words, Mr. Liu's face was full of disbelief. Sister Lan, you have personally said that you love me as your biological sister. How can you ask me to return that money? Mrs. Liu originally thought that she did not burn Ngeer to death at all. Even if Mrs. Yang was annoyed with her, she would be cold to her at most. She never thought that she would get back all the money she spent on herself. Ling Chu couldn't help laughing at her shamelessness. You are really thick-skinned. You are about to burn someone else's son to death. How can you still have the nerve to ask Mrs. Yang to treat you as your own sister? Ngeer wasn't really burned to death. Isn't he living a good life? Sister Lan, brother N is not dead, but my son was burned to death. Can you bear to see me alone and helpless, and you want to take away the little money I have left? Mrs. Liu wiped her tears and wanted Mrs. Yang not to pursue the money spent on her. But Mrs. Yang had already seen clearly that this was an unfamiliar white-eyed wolf, and she was not moved at all. Seeing that Mrs. Yang insisted on asking for the money back, Mrs. Liu simply stopped pretending. I spent all the money. I only have a dozen taels of silver at home. At worst, I will give it all to you. Mrs. Yang didn't believe it at all, and turned to Ling Chu directly. Xiangwu, I know you can find the money no matter where it is hidden. Can I ask you to help me find all the Liu family's money? Gratitude will eventually end. 20220117220621129160112119 16011211917225742 202304281115555836, Pangujenren, Bai Huajian, 11 Ming, Mu Fengzi, 20230113526517, Silver Star, The Cub Who Finds Social Trouble, Prose. BA, National Level 114,514 Protected Waste, Mimi Yang 98, at this moment, laugh with you, 20230601621658, 202303061958333531, get married and live forever. 2023070921485780, Yili, Yanchu. Thank you for your strong support, thank you very much. End of this chapter.